we got a special guest, one of the best shooters ever to come out of NC State. I wish we would have overlapped a year. We've talked about it many times, but Ralston Turner, welcome to Scott Wood's One Man Wolfpack.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, man. So it's been a minute since I've seen you. So kind of fill everybody in. You know, what are you doing now? What's happening in Ralston's life, so you can fill everybody in kind of post state.
Okay, so after school, played a couple years of professional basketball. Played a little bit overseas, and 2 years in the G League. After that, I left basketball in 2017. I started in the financial industries as a financial advisor. Started with Merrill Lynch, but ended up switching over to Morgan Stanley here recently. I've been in Morgan Stanley now since September. So that's what I'm doing now, just helping people manage their wealth, trying to make good decisions. Also coach. I coach a high school basketball team. You know, I feel like for the rest of my life, I'll always love the game of basketball. It's taken me to a lot of places that I never thought I'd imagine being. And it's done a lot for me. So I always want to give back, and that's my way of giving back. It's through the game of basketball as well.
I understand. All right. So from, if I say it wrong, Muscle Shoals, is that how it's pronounced?
Muscle Shoals.
All right. So listen, I don't know anything about like the high school basketball there or the level of basketball. Talk about what it was like to grow up in Muscle Shoals and, you know, play basketball and kind of that experience.
So I actually did a podcast on this not too long ago. I'm from Northwest Alabama, and they asked me what that experience was like growing up. And, everyone knows Alabama for football. I mean, it's no secret, right? And I grew up in the northwest corner of Alabama. So it's weird where Alabama has, in different pockets of the state, there's different kinds of basketball, right? So I grew up in Northwest Alabama at the time. Football was dominant. All my friends played football and baseball. So, I was the one that was in the gym. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, what are y'all doing after school? We're going to go run some routes and lift some weights. I'm like, y'all don't want to go shoot any jump shots or anything like that. So that was just something that I had to overcome in my life, just the football aspect of it. But I also feel like the state's a little bit underrated in terms of some of the talent that's here and that comes out of here. Just because we're known so much for football.
Yeah. Now, would you say, like, because it was a football state, would you say that the level of competition in your high school level suffered? Or would you say, now that just made it, a lot more athletic because you had those football guys that weren't necessarily, basketball players. We've all seen them before, but the athleticism was there. So would you say that kind of hurt the level of competition a little bit? Or would you say the level of competition was still pretty solid?
I feel like the level of competition was pretty solid because, again, as you mentioned, we definitely had the athletes. We've got the athletes in the state. I just think in terms of basketball, I guess you find more players from Alabama that are raw. Is that the right word to say?
That's the term I use. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, for example, North Carolina, I was just looking at this not too long ago on Twitter. I mean, how many players are on active rosters just from the state of North Carolina? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But then you look at Alabama in the South. I mean, how many players are on active NFL rosters? So it's just a shift. But in terms of the athleticism, that part's there. So I think the only part that suffered was just the exposure. People don't really think basketball players come from Alabama, but there are some good basketball players here.
I just remember, so when I was in high school and we had an AU tournament. I don't know if it was the Peach Jam or where was that? We were playing somewhere down south. And I think it was in Georgia. And I remember there was 2 Alabama teams there, and you probably know the names of them, but I mean, the point guard was probably 6'2". The rest of them was all 6'9". So, I mean, you got some good stuff in the water there in Alabama because you got the athletes and the size there for sure. So, kind of, let's move into, you get out of your high school, you decide you want to go to LSU. Kind of talk your recruiting process a little bit, kind of some of the teams that you were considering, and then, your first 2 years at LSU.
Okay. So coming out of high school, obviously Alabama was on the list. LSU was on the list. Who else was in that list? Butler. Really like Butler.
Butler would have been a good fit.
Brad Stevens. I loved what they were doing up there at Butler. Butler was on my list. Mike Brey at Notre Dame. I went on an official visit to Notre Dame. And they play their style of play
I can't even
fits.
interrupt you because what it sounds like is we had the same recruiting path. So we could have very easily ended up at Butler and Notre Dame together. So, all right, continue on.
So, it's actually a funny story. I ended up going to LSU, but when their head coach, Trent Johnson, at the time, he got there in 2008, the spring of 2008, which was my sophomore year in high school. And he gets the job and he calls my high school coach. My high school coach is like, Coach Johnson at LSU calls and he's interested in talking to you. And I was like, LSU's cool. They just went to a Final Four a couple years ago, but there's probably no way I'll ever end up at LSU, right?
Yeah.
So long story short, I kind of fell in love with that team and that coach. All right. So I did my homework and I knew Trent Johnson. He was at Stanford. He had the Lopez twins. He had Landry Fields. So he had a great group there at Stanford. Went to a bunch of NCAA tournaments. But I just fell in love with him and what they were trying to do at LSU. Obviously, the next year was 08-09, which was my junior year. They had won the SEC outright. He was the coach of the year. They had the player of the year in Marcus Thornton. They lost in Greensboro in the second round to eventual national champs. I'm not going to say their names. But everything was trending in the right direction. We had 3 out of 4 of us were top 100 recruits. So the future was bright. I went to LSU. I chose it. I felt good about my decision. And I got there and as well as I know, sometimes the vision that you have going in is not exactly the way things turn out. All in all, I enjoyed my time at LSU. I enjoyed going to school there. I met a lot of great people, but I was just looking for something a little bit more in terms of basketball. Again, to go back to my football analogy, not only Alabama, but the whole Southeast is known for its football.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're at schools like that with dominant football programs, sometimes that can overshadow other programs. And especially guys like me and you love basketball to death. When you go to places like that and all the resources are basketball, all the focus is on basketball, sometimes that can make the environment not as fun to play.
Yeah.
I'll give you a funny story. So when I came to NC State, I think you guys, my redshirt year, the first game or the exhibition game we played was against Belmont Abbey. Is that right? Does that
It
sound
might
about
have been.
right?
I don't know.
So it was after a football game, and everyone got in for free. And we're talking about an exhibition game. There were more people at that exhibition game that were at any of my SEC games at LSU, not named Kentucky. Everybody wanted to see Kentucky play. But I was looking for the experience, right? Like I wanted to go to NCAA tournaments. I wanted to play with great players. I wanted to play somewhere where basketball mattered. So I decided to, at the time there was no transfer portal. You had to go to the compliance office and you had to get your release.
Yeah.
They give you this letter, tell you can't go to X, Y, and Z schools. So I get that letter. And I'm just reaching out to people. And Mark Godfrey, who was the coach at Alabama, I had a great relationship with him. He recruited me when I was in high school. I knew him well. I played AAU basketball with his son. So, that was a bridge that I had already crossed in terms of I already know who you are. So I don't have to go through that again.
Yeah.
But I remember telling my parents, I said, I was looking for somewhere that was just an upgrade. That's all I'm looking for is an upgrade. So I come to Raleigh and everybody talking to me about Scott Wood. I'm like, okay, well, who? I've seen Scott Wood play on TV because I did see a few of you guys' games that year, but in 2011, 2012. So I'm like, okay. And they were like, well, Scott Wood's a senior. And after he's gone, we're going to need someone else to step into that role. So I'm like, okay. So there's my playing time opportunity. I'm not saying that it was mine, but there's an opportunity there. So that was the first thing that was important. So I come on a visit to Raleigh. And when I get there, I immediately feel this sense of comfort. Like, okay, something feels good about this, right? So get over to campus and I'm seeing everything. They're showing me clips of how I fit in with the system. Thomas DeTay and Alex Johnson were the only two on campus. I came in the summertime. So they were my host, and I was with Levi Walkons. And they're taking me around, and we're in the Dale Center, and I played some pickup basketball. I did the whole 9 yards. But I remember leaving and saying to myself, I was like, Mom, in every way, this is an upgrade. All right.
Yeah.
PNC Arena is phenomenal. It's a phenomenal place to play a college basketball game.
Yeah.
The ACC, I mean, it speaks for itself. In my opinion, the toughest basketball conference in college basketball, right?
Mm-hmm.
You guys had just come off a Sweet 16 run, and you've got 3 McDonald's All-Americans coming in, and most of you guys returning back. Like, whew, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So, like, I'm sitting there like, how can I say no to this? So
Yeah.
that was my decision to come to NC State.
So now, did you feel that all like that there was? I'm trying to think the word for it, like a transition. So I talk, a lot about guys making the jump from high school to college and how there's a difference in level. Did you feel like there was a difference, or did you feel like it was a lot closer? Going from the SEC to the ACC, or did you feel like there was a difference in play or style or anything like that?
Definitely. Because when I was at LSU, we played more of a grinded out style.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the teams that we played against, they had big guys, physical guys. So that was kind of the game in the SEC at the time, with the exception of 2 or 3 schools, but then I get to the ACC and everybody's running. It's a little more up and down. And Coach
Yeah.
Godfrey's saying, I want to score 80 every game. So I'm like, okay, I'm having to now go from this 210, 212-pound guard, chucking everybody in the paint and grinding it out to now I'm having to lose some weight, get down to about 204, 205 so I can rip and run corner all day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the styles were definitely different in terms of, the ACC, there was a lot more up and down, a lot more points being scored. And at the time when I was in the SEC, there was a lot more, defensive minded, grinded out type styles.
Yeah, for sure. And now you're at NC State, you get to NC State, obviously, you redshirted, which would have been my senior year and Richard's senior year. And I'll mention it probably 100 times while we're on the show. We'd have loved to have you my senior year. You'd have been the perfect glue guy that we needed that year. So talk the difference, going into your junior year and senior year, kind of compare those two and kind of the differences between those 2 years that you had there.
Okay. So the redshirt year was tough in the sense of, just sitting out not playing games. I always had to remind myself why I was there, and why I chose to sit out. So I did a lot of learning that year. I watched everything. I absorbed everything because I just wanted to be as ready as possible. I watched, for example, they're telling me that next year Scott's leaving and you got to come into this role. I'm watching you. Like,
yeah,
you're one of the best shooters I've ever seen, right? So I'm looking at you. I'm watching you shoot that pill. I'm watching how you come off these screens. I'm watching, what does he do when Tyler Thornton at Duke is getting on his nerves? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm watching everything. All right. So redshirt junior year comes up, and first 4 games we went 2-2. Played pretty good, but not great. It's one of those things where you got to shake off the rust, because I know people may not really think this. A lot of times when you have a person that transfers, it's like, okay, he's playing this year, he's going to come out, he's going to knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
But there's like a transition period there because you just haven't played in a year. You know what I'm saying? So the last time I played, I was an LSU Tiger playing in a completely different style of play. And now I'm at NC State, a whole 2 years later, playing in a different style. So that was an adjustment. Also a new team. I mean, how many of you guys left after that first year? I think the percentage was we lost 70% of our scoring.
Yeah.
It was like, the cavalry left. So all of a sudden we got all these question marks around us and who's going to step up. We've got now Tyler Lewis, who's stepping into a role and playing more minutes. TJ was TJ,
Yeah.
like TJ is going to be TJ. We got freshman Lenar Freeman. We got BJ Anya, Kyle Washington, Cat Barber. So we're kind of young, but that year was good for me. I felt like from the start of that year to the end, I grew up a lot. I learned what it was to be an ACC player. I actually think our team again, with so many question marks, we finally, somewhere around January, kind of figured out, what it took to win.
Mm-hmm.
And that was also the year that we got in, we were on the bubble. We got into the play-in game. So that was, it's not comfortable to be on the bubble. But after that year, we'd come into the team meeting and we said next year, we don't want to be sitting on the bubble. We want to do ourselves a favor and make sure that we get in. So whenever Selection Sunday comes, we know that we should be in. So senior year comes around. Now we got Trevor Lacey, who's coming out of his redshirt year. And we've got all those young guys I just mentioned were a year older. But TJ's gone. So there's still these question marks. Like, okay, so now the ACC Player of the Year is gone. What are the rest of you going to do? And that year, we were really excited about the talent that we had. We thought that we had a good group, and we thought that, if we did it together, we could probably accomplish a lot of things that year. So season gets off rolling, and we're doing pretty good. Get into conference play, start off kind of hot, and then all of a sudden something happened. So there was a point in ACC play where we were 5-7. We were 5-7, and we're like, yo, this can't be right. So we just had to kind of make some changes and just kind of strap the boots on, and our backs were to the wall. So it's like, okay, if you want to make it to the NCAA tournament, you better start fighting right now. So it started at Louisville. It was on Valentine's Day. We go to Louisville, we win. Come back home. I think we played Virginia Tech at home. We win. Then we go to Carolina and we win. And it was like in the matter of a week and a half, our picture went from out to in.
Yeah.
So we ended up finishing that conference season 10-8. Went to the ACC tournament, beat Pittsburgh, lost to Duke. Get to the NCAA tournament. All right. So now we're playing against LSU. My former school, and it was so weird, man. We had a practice at the Dale on Sunday, and we're watching the selection show, and they say, Raleigh, NC State, Wolfpack, and then they say we'll be playing the LSU Tigers, and you just saw the look on my face, dude. I was eating some food, and I almost spit that stuff out on the floor. I was like, dog, I can't believe this. You're gonna talk about the full circle of life. So everybody's jumping. There's a picture somewhere. Everybody was jumping up and down. I'm just sitting in my seat like, I can't believe this. Also, funny note, I was walking on campus the next day, and a guy passed by me, and he was like, congrats on making the NCAA tournament. Did you know that you guys play LSU? I was like, nah, I didn't know. But that was weird for me. Phone was blowing up, so I actually deleted all my social media apps that week because I just kept thinking to myself, I left there. I'm a senior. This is not the way I want my career to end, losing to the team that I left to. So we ended up going there, and we were losing. We're down at halftime, and we ended up coming back. BJ Anya made the most phenomenal shot ever. Our coaches have been telling him forever to quit shooting that left-handed hook shot, and for the win, he goes up with the left-handed hook shot, and it goes in, and Malik Abu almost gets a basket interference. And then we go to the next round, and we play the 1 seed Villanova, and we were ready to play. I mean, we played a great game. So ended up going to the Sweet 16 that year, and in my opinion, Louisville ended up beating us, but we could have come out the other side as well. I just felt like I've heard you say this before about your team, where you felt like y'all had the talent, but you just didn't make it as far as you thought you guys could have.
Yeah.
I felt that way about that year's team. I felt like we had a great team that year. And I felt like we could have made it a little further, but that just wasn't in the cards for us. So all in all, man, that was my 2 years. I had a great time. My 2 years, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
All I can remember is that obviously that Tippin and that run was one of the crazier runs, and then they beat the Villanova, and all I can picture is that the chick that played the flute or whatever it is. Like, even to this day, it's nothing NC State related. It'll just be her crying playing the flute or whatever she's playing, and it's just somebody making fun of her on one of those memes. So that's all I can picture from that run now is just that moment of y'all beating Villanova and her crying.
What do you think she's going to say 20 years from now when she's in some other walk of life and that picture just keeps surfacing forever?
See, by then, they're going to have some new technology. I feel like, okay, when I was playing, obviously Instagram and Twitter were like happening, but by then that might even be gone and forgotten about. But to this day, people be posting something where somebody's upset and it's her crying. Literally, they're going to post some meme of her. And I'm like, yeah, that was my alma mater right there that did that to her. So
they call it a Picola girl. Picola girl.
The Picola?
Picola girl.
I ain't got an idea what it was.
Yeah.
Somebody will message me after they see the podcast and figure out. But until then, I'm gonna call it the flute, the oboe or trombone, one of those. So I don't know. But this is the one question I really wanted to ask you. So the year you transferred and you knew you had to sit out, I know that from being on the team, you were on the scout team the whole year, and we absolutely hated you because any person that was getting it up, you would be that person in the scout. So, we're playing Kyrie Irving. I don't even know who was that year. For example, you would be Kyrie Irving, so you'd be getting it up, and you would just be torching us. So kind of talk about that scout team and what you think it kind of did for your game, because looking back on it, I think, you being with those guys and you knowing that every day you come to practice, you're going to be the guy. And even though it's not our offense per se, you're getting the ball and you're, running everything. What did that do for your game? And do you feel like that kind of jumped you to the next level a little bit?
I think that year was as much beneficial to me as any year I've ever had in basketball. And a lot for that reason, right? So when I get to NC State, one of the things I'm thinking about is earning the respect of my teammates and my coaches. So one way to do that is to shut up and practice hard.
Yeah.
That's one way to do it. But one of the things that I enjoyed about it was so you guys had an ultra talented team. You guys were ultra talented. And I knew that if I could get out there with you guys and at least just hold my own, I knew that the next year it would kind of give me some confidence knowing that, okay, I can do this, because I haven't played in the ACC yet. I feel like I'm a pretty good player, but I haven't jumped in these waters yet. And you guys were talented. So, I went out there every day just with the mindset of get better. Levi used to text me when I was in class and he used to be like, okay, you're Eric Green today. Or, you're this guy today. So you better shoot the ball. I'm like, okay. So I get to practice, and every day before practice, I'd be down there with Coach Lutz and we'd be going through the sets.
Yeah.
And they would be telling me like what I'm supposed to do. Like you need to go right and you need to keep spinning and shoot turnaround jumpers. Or every time you touch it, I don't care if you're at half court, you need to let it fly. Like the ball has to hit your hand every time. You know what I'm saying? So it also helped me learn and put other things into my game. You know what I'm saying? Like I just got to try. So it was like freestyle every day.
And that's one of the things too, like looking back on it, and a lot of fans probably don't know this, how detailed the scout is. Like Bobby Lutz would know he goes 85% left, or when he goes right, he always gets to the rim. When he goes left, he always shoots a pull-up jumper. So when it came to the scout team, he would tell us as defenders what we're trying to make him do, and you would try to do what that guy on that night would do. So to me, in my mind, and I know this is why, you got a lot better, is because you did a lot of things that you necessarily wouldn't want to do. So you kind of add a couple things to your game that, you kind of not necessarily learn from someone else, but you're being forced to do for the scout team, which only helps you.
Exactly. There were times that year where, again, he's telling me what I'm doing. Like, you're going to go right and cross over, but you got to get back to your right. And you guys knew what I was trying to do. So sometimes there was a little frustrating that it's like, I'm trying to force the issue, but I can't because y'all know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, it was just something that I felt like it just made me better, man. I mean, I enjoyed going against you guys. You guys certainly made me better. And I felt like, as an ultimate teammate, I owed it to you guys. It was my responsibility to do my part to help make sure you guys are ready. I may not be playing in the game, but I'll do my part up until the game. So that was probably one of the most fun times of my life that year as a red shirt on scout team.
Well, and that's the thing. Like you definitely earned our respect and everything on that level. But and we talked about a little bit on. I had Stotts, who was a walk-on at State. We talked about a lot of people don't realize what the scout team has to go through. Like they show up before practice. They're learning. They not only need to know our plays when they run 5-on-0 and our stuff, but now they have to learn another team stuff. And I mean, we can have 2-3 games in a week, and that's not easy. You learn Boston College's stuff 3 days later. Now you got, Clemson. And then 2 days later, all of a sudden we got Duke. And you got to constantly understand what you're playing. And trust, Bobby Luth would lay into you. And, even if you, he wouldn't hold back. So that's one of the things, me looking back on, I appreciated it because our scout team was so good. They were so solid. They were so effective. Me as a guy that I wouldn't classify as like a great defender or a great athletic player, it made it easier for me now in the game because I literally knew everything that team was doing. So
Dude, I want to give a shout out to all our scout team teammates as well, because you are right. Sometimes I look back at some of the stuff, I'm like, man, how did we do that? Like, you're for real. Like, we come in and like you said, we play Wake Forest on Wednesday, we play Virginia Tech on Saturday, and we're in here learning 5 sets for practice, and you better run them right. Like, you better not get out there and not know what you're doing. Bobby Luce is gonna have a cow.
Exactly. I keep saying one of these days I'm gonna have like 4 of us on that we're all scout team and just let them talk stories because they would have some of the best stories. That'll be one of my podcasts because they won't hold back either. They will call out every player, say everything they did wrong in a practice. They will not hold back. So we'll move on a little bit from kind of NC State. You're into coaching now. Kind of talk about this because this is one thing that's kind of interesting to me. You're a great player. Now you're coaching, kids that may not have necessarily the skill you had or the athleticism you had. Talk about the difficulties from you being a really, really good player to now coaching players that, not aren't necessarily on your level, but you're trying to get them there and the difficulties that may have.
So early on, I struggled with that because I just expected people like, if I could do it, you should be able to do it. You know what I'm saying? So what I had to do is kind of take a couple steps back. I had to say, okay, first of all, what's my why? Why am I here? And I'm here to impact kids. I'm here to make them better. Mm-hmm. I'm here to help them gain confidence. So I just tried to keep it simple. So instead of now me being hard or critical about what I think they should be able to do or what they can't do, I just turned it into more of, number one, have you gotten better?
Yeah.
Number 2, are you playing the right way? And number 3, do you play hard? I asked one of my friends one time, I said, what do you think makes a high school coach a good high school coach? Because obviously you don't go recruit your talent. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So he said, if you can get your kids to play hard every night, you got to think about it, man. These are 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. You never know what you're going to get from day to day with them. And obviously, some of them don't have aspirations of playing at the highest level. So once basketball is over, they want to go home and play video games. They don't care about it to the level that I or you cared about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that was an adjustment too. So I just kind of tried to simplify it for myself and just say, are you getting better? Are you learning? And are you playing hard? And if I can get you to do those 3 things, I feel like it's a win in my book.
Yeah, especially in the high school level. I feel like playing hard can win you a lot of games at the high school level. I mean, you've got probably 2 or 3 like good high school players and, 4th, 5th, 6th man, 7th man off the bench, you might drop off on the level a little bit, but if you can get those guys to play hard, you can win a lot of games for sure. So
absolutely.
Because I just did a broadcast. It was Fuquay Arena, Apex Friendship. And that was the one thing I noticed was a little bit of drop off on competition, but if you can find a way to kind of, because APEC Friendship ended up winning, but they had, the rest of those guys were really playing hard, really executing, running the right way, playing the right way. And that's basically the reason they won, not necessarily because they had more talent, because the other team probably had more talent, but they played hard and did it the right way.
You got to keep it simple.
Exactly. All right. So we're going to touch on current NC State just a little bit, because I know, me included, there's a lot of frustrated fans out there right now with this stretch that's come down. Just talk. What do you think they need moving forward to kind of turn it around? I mean, you mentioned it. You guys were 5-7 ACC. A lot of times it results in team meetings. I wasn't a big fan of team meetings, but sometimes it's team meeting. What do you think they need to kind of turn this ship around and get it in the right direction?
I think the first thing that kind of sticks out to me is just having contributions along the line from everyone, and on a consistent basis. It can't be A player one time and B player one time and C player one time. Like, can we get A, B, and C together?
Yeah.
So that's one observation of mine. The other one is just kind of, on offense, they run a lot of ball screens, a lot of pick and roll. There's a lot of space on the floor. Maybe at times it might be something helpful to just kind of, if we want a three, let's draw up this play and run a screen for our shooter, just to get a certain shot. Or, if we want to go to our big down low, let's run a specific set for him just to get him this exact touch. Because, I can speak from my experience, and you probably know this too. I used to love when Coach Godfrey called corner.
Yeah.
It's something that kind of gives you confidence when it's like, okay, I know this is for me.
Yeah.
So sometimes once you can get that going and see one go in, it just kind of changed the outlook. So again, I think just moving forward, maybe just a more balanced effort on offense, because I think they play hard. I don't feel like their issue is playing hard at all. That's not it. I just think there's probably just some, little tweaks that they could make. But that's my thoughts.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing with Coach Keats's team. It's very rare you can question, the effort on that night, but there's just times where, like you've kind of mentioned on the offensive end, things we talked about it prior to the show, a little bit stagnant, a little bit standstill. And as a player, you just want to feel involved, even though the play may not necessarily be for you. I want to feel like maybe I'll just go set a down screen. Maybe I'll set a flare just to have the defense, maybe the action's all the way on the right side and I'm on the left side, but maybe I can just distract them just enough that makes me feel involved, that it can open something up for somebody else. So I feel like I talked about it on Pack Pride's thing, just that offensive flow and that continuity. And obviously, I've said it, the best teams I've ever been on, you just mentioned it, the best teams I've ever been on, you have that consistency at the top. Nobody's averaging 20. It's just that, you got 4 or 5 players right around 13. And I think they do kind of have that consistency at the scoring position, but it's like you said, it's just kind of one night you'll have a guy have 13, the next night he's there for 2. You got to have that reliability that they're kind of missing. So hopefully the next one's going to be a big one, because I know they got a tough stretch coming up. So hopefully they can figure it out. So I got a couple goofy questions to end it up. So these are just easy questions. Just have fun with it. The first one is, have you ever watched Sweet Home Alabama all the way through?
I have not. I have not.
Man, I figured that was like for me watching Hoosiers. So I've watched Hoosiers 100 times. I figured you've watched Sweet Home Alabama.
But I know a lot of the words to the song "Sweet Home
All
Alabama."
right. I think it's Leonard Skinner. If I get that one wrong, my mom will be mad. So at least you got that one down. So all right, the next one: favorite place near campus, just near campus, to eat. Your favorite place.
Can I use the same one as someone else has said before?
Yeah.
I like Amigos. I love Amigos.
Amigos is the easy one to pick. Great. Yeah. Hey, listen, all the ones I've heard, I cannot complain. They've all named great ones. So we're slowly starting to get enough people on the show that we're going to get a good, pull on it, where the best place is. So I think that's Emilio's second one. So you can't go wrong with that. All right. And then the last question before we send you off, your best memory in an NC State uniform.
Ooh, probably going over to UNC and winning my senior year. It was a quote or some statement that was said before the game that, NC State will never win the Dean Dome unless hell freezes over. And that night we won, it actually snowed outside. So it was actually pretty cool, but that was probably the best one.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I know we'll have you back on the show for sure. So everybody listening, please like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff that I don't really understand, but please do it on Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. Ralston, I appreciate you coming on. I know I'll be in touch with you. I'm sure we'll have you back on the show. We'll play some golf. I heard you got the golf bug, so we gotta get you down here to play some golf a little bit. So thank you for coming on, and go Pack.
Thanks, man. Good to see you.